Have you seen what's happening with the Schumann resonance right now? I think this should be reported on the news on literally every channel. But for some reason, almost nobody at all is talking about what's really happening to our planet. Look at this chart, it's exceptionally powerful and revealing. And right now, we're witnessing how, for several days in a row, energy is continuously surging and intensifying in an ever-increasing stream, maintaining a distinct characteristic vibration, as if someone is deliberately transmitting it directly to us, magnetizing the resonance. Yes, indeed, a large spacecraft is currently heading toward us, carrying representatives of the Galactic Federation of Light on board. And these aren't just extraterrestrials, they are bringing with them to our sun a huge energy sphere that is meant to charge our planet and initiate the quantum transition. But they have already begun this process. Because right after our broadcast, there were about 15 solar flares within a single day, and each day the number kept increasing. Some of the most intense and incredibly powerful flares we have seen, and it's incredible. As a result, these powerful streams of energy are now reaching us. Right now, you might be feeling quite unwell. Perhaps you feel a sense of heaviness, or maybe your thoughts are getting mixed up. Some people feel apathetic and unable to think clearly. Have you personally experienced any of these states lately? These are symptoms of the quantum transition. You are fine. You are not sick. It's just that right now you are at a stage where the old matrix is collapsing, you are detaching from it, and you are moving to a new level of vibration. Very soon, your quantum abilities will begin to fully open up. These are incredible superpowers that are now awakening in everyone. And now, the most crucial thing for us to understand at this moment, and what specific recommendations can be offered to you right now, is the need to ground these energies. They truly need to be grounded, because the Schumann resonance on our planet should typically be maintained at a level of approximately 7.83 MHz. But now, this frequency reaches 30 MHz, which means we are receiving an energy flow 4 times greater than normal. This needs to be talked about everywhere. These are streams that are coming in directly, like a download. And this started exactly on the 8th of August, precisely on the date when the Lion's Gate opens. And right now, the most powerful downloads of renewing spiritual energies are taking place.
Sometimes I get the distinct impression that this cosmic ship, the brilliantly bright one with the aliens, keeps steadily approaching, getting closer and closer to Earth. And every time it flies in, and yet it never seems to finally land.
It won't land. In short, it simply won't land. I mean, I don't see that it will land, say, in November or December or sometime this year, in 2025, as if it's supposed to land. It's possible that we're even filming this video after, or rather posting it after, that hypothetical date. It won't land. In other words, the Earth won't collide with this thing. Absolutely. So this is a separate story. It really is inhabited by certain, well, intelligent beings. As for the Schumann resonance, that is a very interesting topic. I am not even going to use numbers. Look, I do not like numbers at all. I can put it this way. In terms of vibrations, we really are rising higher. I've already talked about this like a billion times. If you've heard this information from me before, give this video a like. I'm really curious to see how many of you there are. It's very easy to prove. In fact, anyone who practices esoteric disciplines can explain, prove, and feel this, because in terms of vibrations, we really are rising higher, which means that all our practices, especially the high-frequency, highly spiritual ones, are working better. Take meditation practices, for example. I have a school, right? The school has been around for 12 years. This year, in 26, it will be 13 years in May. 12 years ago, it took about a year to reach the higher self. It took a year and the success rate was about 50-50. Not everyone succeeded, and it wasn't very deep. Yes, as of today, we have an 80% success rate in reaching the higher self. So and I personally, yes, I'm from MSU, so I really love statistics and data. In a way, I'm a scientist, esotericist to some extent. So every 6 months, we consistently conduct a survey in the groups. How many of you have reached the result? How many of you have reached results with assistance? How many of you have reached results, let's say, with the higher self, with answers to questions, with simple ones, with complex ones? So it's really like a test, analytics. I keep track of all these numbers and try to make sure that the numbers are higher, they are increasing. And not just by my own, so to speak, will. Of course, I also change something there, adjust some approaches, maybe explain things more clearly with words. But the people who attend these sessions, they really do start showing significant improvement from the very first lectures. They really do much better compared to their previous state of being, yes. And so on. I think this applies to any techniques, any practices frequencies that, at least to some extent, vibrate and resonate at somewhat higher frequencies. So right now, we're not talking about, I don't know, techniques of curses or anything like that. No, we're talking specifically about approaches to higher frequencies. And this really is much easier. Because again, this spectrum, you can really feel that it's shifting upward. So in principle, he's saying everything correctly. The only thing is, he said that you need to ground yourself. For most people, probably yes. But on the other hand, if you live on elevated energy levels, generally on quite high ones, you actually start to feel more and more at home. You get more and more of a sense that your baseline frequency, the one you live on and feel comfortable with, starts to increasingly align with the frequency of the world around you. So if people have this really apathetic feeling, like they have no energy, as if everything, just everything, yes, that is, it's because of a mismatch in frequencies. They're not used to it. They're not used to living at such frequencies. The simplest comparison, basically, if you've never listened to good, clean music, here I go again with my favorite topic, but you really can explain a lot with it. You sit there listening, and honestly, it really starts to grate on your ears. There are all these clicks and pops, all sorts of whistling and crackling sounds. Yeah, these little snaps. It's just uncomfortable. So, for many people who switch, say, to hi-fi after listening to MP3s on a pair of 100 ruble headphones, after about an hour, their ears start to feel really uncomfortable simply because they're just not used to it, And that's just how it is. And the opposite is true as well. If you've spent your whole life listening to hi-fi and you're always picking out all those timbres, then when you put on a pair of 100 ruble headphones, it really starts to grate on your ears. It's the same thing here. People who live in dense vibrations, really dense ones, as the frequencies rise, it becomes really hard for them. But for those who have been living at more or less higher frequencies, it's the opposite. They're like, oh, we're coming home. The great transition, thank God we've lived to see this. That's it. So again, it all depends on the person. And you shouldn't listen to someone else, because I know some bloggers say things like, oh, high frequencies, let's rejoice, I feel so good. While others say, high frequencies, I feel so bad. Yeah, you need to ground yourself. It all depends on the person. It all depends on their architecture. For example, for me, since I've been connecting with my higher self for, 12 years now, as part of the school, and over 20 years on my own, it's actually really good for me. I feel really, really good. Especially throughout these past few months, I have really started to feel it, and it has been just great. If these frequencies could somehow rise even higher than they are now, it would be even better for all of us.
If a person, as the frequencies rise, starts, for example, to get sick, they start to feel shaken up, they just walk around sweating, they have fears. Is that normal?
Of course it's normal. It's like with raw foodism. When you switch to a raw food diet, for example, if your body is full of toxins, all of that starts to come out. You can see it right away. I mean, if you've been eating nothing but chemicals your whole life. Well, not you. I'm speaking hypothetically. I know you're fine in that regard. So, hypothetically, let's say you ate meat, ate processed foods, I don't know, lived off nothing but Snickers bars, switching, as they say, from Snickers to French fries or, to burgers, all on a sesame seed bun, like in the commercials with a patty. Yeah? And, well, of course you're going to feel bad if you suddenly switch to a raw food diet. You'll feel absolutely awful, get pimples, your intestines will hurt, feel nauseous, vomit, and have diarrhea. All of that is pretty standard. It's the same thing with vibrations. If you're living on really dense energies and then suddenly this starts happening, you can fall into depression or get caught up in all sorts of confusing situations, So the way out is to raise your vibrations, to pull them up, and instead to perceive these tensions that come up as well as a conversation with God. You know how people sometimes say pain is a conversation with God? Well, in a way, that's true. To some extent, it really is. So you should treat it as, as symptoms, right? And actually, you should take those symptoms straight to a psychologist, at least to a clinical psychologist. So when certain tensions or stiffness start to come up, at the very least, you should start working through them with a good psychologist. And even better, involve your higher self as a generator of high energies within yourself. With the higher self, transitioning to higher energies becomes much easier.
Do you have psychologists open to the higher self?
Yes, I have an entire team of psychologists I personally know who have a great attitude toward the higher self. Half of them even took my course.
A question about solar flares. Can you explain the mechanics, well, more vibrationally or even energetically?
Probably yes, because I'm not an astronomer.
I understand. I don't want you to talk about...
Not one.
About matter, yes, but specifically about how this process happens energetically and informationally.
The sun is a very high vibrational structure, a very high vibrational structure. It is very, and you know, this massive structure, it's manifested as if in a wide spectrum. So, roughly speaking, the sun contains both very high realms, high worlds, and also very low ones, almost demonic, you could say. That's why some people I know, esotericists, say things like the sun is like a place of higher worlds. And others say, no, the sun is hell. Well, both are right. Both sides are correct. Both spectrums exist there. The sun really deserves a separate study altogether. If any of you are truly interested in the topic of the sun, for me to really research it deeply, to sit down and have a long talk all about the sun, let's give this video a like. Let's do it this way. If we get 500 likes, I'll make a video about the sun. I'll tell you a little bit now, just as a teaser, okay? It's such a massive and vast energy informational, well, an intricate and multifaceted complex of all energies, that any flares on it, what do they truly represent in their essence? On the material level, it's actually the release of energy. So basically, this structure kind of releases a certain energy, and it does not perform this action without a specific purpose. So to put it in more general terms, well, it's not like we just randomly and chaotically spit something out. In fact, in our world, nothing actually happens randomly or chaotically. So yes, on the level of physics, there's this certain thermonuclear fusion and so on, you know, all these reactions and emissions, right? But again, why do these emissions, let's say, happen today and not tomorrow? Why do they, let's say, happen at 2 in the afternoon and not at 10 in the evening? So yes, there is. And it's not just random, not just because it just happened that way. Anyone who's even a little bit into esotericism knows that nothing ever happens randomly. That is, everything is adjusted to certain rhythms. In other words, the entire universe, absolutely everything lives according to certain rhythms, certain laws, even certain algorithms to some extent, yes. And there are, among others, servants of the astral planes who use these algorithms for outbursts, for example, the same solar flares for various reasons. So it's always, absolutely always, there is some kind of astral charge involved. There is always an astral charge, yes. And, well, most often in my personal experience, without going too deep into the complex topic of the sun right now, it's always, if you find that you need to send a certain energetic surge to raise vibrations, to burn something away, or perhaps for some other specific purposes, it is a very consistent process. So there, again, you really need to carefully examine and consider exactly what the underlying purpose might be, right? But a flare is always some kind of impulse deliberately and consciously sent forth by the sun to accomplish a specific set of complex goals and strategic objectives that the designated solar curators assign specifically to that flare. So if it's a series of flares, then it's a comprehensive set of tasks that need to be solved with those very flares. What exactly are these tasks? And in general, what is the sun really like? Once we get 500 likes, we'll record it.
Is there a chance that there will be a really big flare and we'll get a full-on reset here?
If a truly global reset is needed, a real global one, and the architects can't find any other way except to trigger a global flare, then yes, there will be a flare. It's just, you see how it is? Think of a global flare this way. Do you know what that feels like? It's like, say, someone wakes up with a painful sore throat, and instead of taking just one lozenge, they swallow the entire jumbo pack of strepsils. Maybe the sore throat will go away immediately. But that's not really how it works. So sometimes more doesn't mean better. That is, yes, sometimes stronger doesn't mean better. Sometimes stronger means you'll just burn your throat and end up being sick even longer with a fever and tonsillitis. Exactly. That's why strong flares, well, it's kind of like an excessive thing. Plus, what else do? They also destroy the ozone layer. They also, in addition, destroy and disrupt the operation of electromagnetic devices, interfere with airplane flights, and so on. They irradiate people, interfere with equipment on the ground. A bunch of people will go crazy because of this, lose their minds. Usually when solar flares occur, sensitive people, those who are weather sensitive, they start to lose it a little, their minds start to slip. Why? Because, again, all our bodies are energy informational and to a very large extent electrical. So this influence, yes, the specific influence of the solar flares, the influence of this electromagnetic radiation, it affects us as well. Again, I'm not a physicist and I'm not a biologist, I just clearly feel that when these flares occur. I feel this flare in my subtle body. I really feel it quite intensely. I don't even know if it's electromagnetic or something else, or anyway, this is where the dedicated astronomers, almost said astrologers, the expert physicists, the specialized geophysicists, yes, those who study all these various coronal emissions of planet Earth, come in. Please share your own thoughts and write about it in the comments. As an esotericist, I can say that there is an influence. No matter what kind of flare it is, there is an influence. That is a flare and the human field. A flare and the human field exist, so there is a connection. They operate on somewhat similar frequencies. But again, for those who are interested, I am studying the topic of the sun in depth. I will study it from both a physics and terminology perspective and esoterically as well. I will go really deep into it, and we will film a separate big episode about the sun. So what exactly is the sun? What kind of astral layer is there? What kind of guardians are there? Do they even exist, these guardians, or are they not there? And so on. So if we get 500 likes, we'll shoot the video.
Is this somehow connected to the Great Transition?
You mean the number of solar flares?
Yes.
Well, yes, definitely. Because at the very least, one of the functions of those flares is to increase vibrations, just as he says. So even without going too deep, there is a certain correlation there, yes, between solar flares as specific energy impulses and the increase in the Earth's frequencies. It's definitely connected, but I have a strong feeling that there's a lot more to it. So it's not just, like we're sending some impulses to planet Earth and raising its vibrational background. It doesn't work like that. That's a very primitive approach. There's actually a large multidimensional structure to all of this. That's it. But the Great Transition is happening, and it's happening in different ways, through different methods. First and foremost, it's happening right here in people's minds. And the more I always like to laugh and joke that if you went up to a medieval peasant in the Middle Ages and started telling him about all this, about your self-worth, about your inner child, about self-discovery, I don't know, about loving your neighbor, about, I don't know, something else, about some kind of ethics, aesthetics, and so on. At best, he'd just hit you over the head with a shovel and run away, right? Or he might call the guards, and the guards would either hang you from the nearest tree or burn you at the stake in the town square. And then, after that, everyone would gather in the town square, loudly jeering and shouting terrible things like "burn the witch" or "burn the sorcerer." And they would all happily stand there and watch as a poor person burns alive, right? And back then, that was considered totally normal. People actually thought it was great, but not now. Now, I mean, that's just, some kind of utter savagery. But what's the difference between then and now? 500 years? 600 years, fine. No, 500 years. 500 years isn't that much. That's 4 generations. Well, maybe 5 generations. If we're talking about people who live to be 100, let's say, all right, okay, let's say 10 generations. But 10 generations, that's still not much. 10 generations isn't really that many. That's why things have changed so much in terms of vibes, really a lot. We have developed completely different ethical views. Now, for example, you can't even, show blood on live TV, let's say. Often it's not allowed. Before you could burn things, right? Or even, on the contrary, add more fuel to the fire. But now you can't. So you know what I mean? Now, for example, it is not just about blood. There are actually quite a lot of things that, you can discuss them, but it's perceived as some kind of wild medieval barbarism in the literal sense of the word. Although, again, by the standards of the universe, it's just, a moment, just a second has passed. We have evolved a lot. Now, everyone talks about how there are still wars going on. They are, but again, they're happening in a completely different way now. If you gave modern weapons to people in the Middle Ages, you and I wouldn't even be making this video, because they would have just destroyed each other, wiped out women and children completely. There would be no one left at all. That's why we've changed a lot in terms of our vibrations. We've changed a great deal. And we will continue to change over the next 50 to 100 years. We will change dramatically and reach a completely new level.
Friends, we invite you to join our training on connecting with your higher self.
Special discounted group, January. Answers to questions, including not just connecting with your higher self, but also answers to a wide variety of questions, both difficult and quite simple.
The link will be in the description. Danila Grigoriev's school.
I'll be waiting for everyone.
My dear friends, for 10 years now, I've been teaching a course on the higher self for a Russian-speaking audience. During this time, about 4,000 to 4,500 people have passed through my school. I've been working on this topic for 20 years. Today, my school is one of the largest and most famous specialized schools for connecting with the higher self in the Russian-speaking world. And then I suddenly realized that it is finally time to reach out to the masses, so to speak. Yes, to the much wider world and to the incredibly vast expanse of the entire global internet. All the professional skills I have carefully developed, all the dedicated practices I have refined, and all the quick entries, thorough checks, and rigorous exams I have built over the last 10 years are now being brought to a truly global level. I now invite you to join a brand new, specially discounted group for the comprehensive Return to the True Self course, now available in English for students everywhere. 6 months of work on stopping the internal dialogue, working with blocks, and focusing on actually accessing the higher self. Answering both simple and complex questions regarding purpose, contact with God, and with the planet. Answering basically any questions on any topic, including work, relationships, and anything at all. Manifesting desires through the higher self, viewing past lives through the higher self, and everything that didn't fit into the first 5 months in a separate 6th one. And after that, you'll have the opportunity to join the alumni club, as well as the chance to continue your studies at the 2nd level of the school. The price for the discounted groups is discounted. You can find all the information about this below at the link under this video.